We have an update for you on the United Auto Workers strike. Ford and General Motors have announced layoffs for non-striking workers. Ford announced temporary layoffs of around 600 employees at the Michigan assembly plant, and General Motors said it would be, quote, idling its Fairfax assembly plant in Kansas, which will put 2,000 people out of work, according to Local 4 News.
UAW President Shawn Fain released a statement following reports of planned layoffs of non-striking workers at General Motors and Ford. Quote, let's be clear, if the big three decide to lay off people who aren't on strike, that's them trying to put the squeeze on our members to settle for less. With their record profits, they don't have to lay off a single employee. In fact, they could double every auto worker's pay, not raise car prices, and still rake in billions of dollars. Their plan won't work.
I think in particular that refrain where they contrast what the company could do, pointing to enormous profits and the fact that they could literally double the salaries for everybody working there, which is not what the UAW workers are advocating for, really does put the onus back on the big three to justify why they would do something like put all of these workers, non-striking workers, out of work, seemingly out of spite. They can obviously not fire the striking workers without being perceived as or being charged with retaliation under various labor laws. So it does seem like they're taking it out on those they can't take it out on, hoping to divide and conquer.
So that's why they're doing it, because they're legally prohibited from laying off workers that are on strike.
Well, they can be, my understanding is they can be sanctioned for doing so as a kind of retaliation. It is your right. You have the right to withhold your labor. And so now the question is there public sentiment going to align with the big three automakers who are hurting random innocent workers who they certainly can afford to pay and who have been working in a way that enables the company to bring in record profits, all to prevent a more equitable distribution of the gains of that exact labor.
So you said they're not asking for their salaries to be doubled, but they are asking for 40%. A 40% raise.
Which is reflective of what the CEO pay raise
The company has offered 20%. Those are pretty generous raises.
Not as generous as what they've given to the CEOs, whose work product, frankly, is not creating the value in the company.
Okay, but 20% is still, I mean, it's still a lot. It's not, it's a massive raise.
If I stole $100 out of your wallet and said I was going to give you $50 of it back, would you be happy that I returned some of the money, or would you be resentful that I stole $50 from you?
I don't think that analogy really works, because they're not stealing their money. They work for them.
Well, this is wage labor theory.
The Hill's not stealing from me. It employs me, right? Reason's not stealing from me. It employs me. You know, I don't like it. I don't have to work for them.
Well, if you don't feel like you're being paid the value of your labor, you should consider working somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what these people are saying. They're saying that from the direct product of what we do with our hands every single day of our lives, we have enabled these companies to earn record profits. You have taken those profits, and instead of investing them in us or in the business, you have engaged in stock buybacks to drive up the price of your shares and distributed funds to shareholders and to CEOs and executives. These executives have gotten a 40% pay raise because of the productivity and the labor of the workforce. And instead of distributing those gains among the people without whom they would not exist, there has been a choice to use the fact that poor and working people are living paycheck to paycheck and are less likely to complain because they need those jobs, and instead prioritize shareholders whose only contribution to the company is that they were rich enough to buy in at the top level.
I guess I would... For me, my part, I would look with a little bit of disdain on whatever legal policies are in place that when this kind of thing happens, the people that get punished are the people who are not going on strike.
Well, that's the choice of the big three automakers. So I agree, that's really unethical behavior. Many people are going to feel that way. And if you think that there should be laws that constrain companies from firing non-striking workers, I think that we could probably have a conversation about that.
That's not what I was saying.
I know, it's not what you're saying, Robby.
Now, in the wake of simultaneous strikes by Hollywood actors and writers, talk show host Drew Barrymore reversed course on her decision to resume filming her talk show after she received intense backlash when originally announcing the show would be returning this fall without its writers. She said in a since-deleted video, "I wanted to do this because, as I said, this is bigger than me and there are other people's jobs on the line. And since launching live in a pandemic, I just wanted to make a show that was there for people in sensitive times. I weighed the scales. I thought if we could go on during a global pandemic and everything that the world has experienced through 2020, why would this sideline us?" Now, members of the Writers Guild picketed outside the Drew Barrymore show last week after the talk show resumed production.
Now, Barrymore has decided to pause the show's return until the end of the strike, posting on Instagram, quote, "I have listened to everyone and am making the decision to pause the show's premiere until the strike is over. I have no words to express my deepest apologies to anyone I have hurt and, of course, to our incredible team who works on the show and has made it what it is today. We really tried to find our way forward, and I truly hope for a resolution for the entire industry very soon." Barrymore also posted a video of her apologizing prior to her decision to pause production. Let's watch some of that.
I deeply apologize to writers. I deeply apologize to unions. I deeply apologize. There's nothing I can do or say in this moment to make it okay. I wanted to own a decision so that it wasn't a PR protected situation, and I would just take full responsibility for my actions. There are so many reasons why this is so complex, and I just want everyone to know my intentions have never been in a place to upset or hurt anyone.
Now, notably, she has seemingly deleted that video from her Instagram. Now, she got a lot of pushback, I think, one, substantively, because she was being a scab, and politically, many people, especially in her industry, did not support going on with her show. But I think also because she's known to be someone who's empathic, who cares about the little guy. That's kind of the ethos of her show. She will get down on the ground and hold hands and cry with people. So it did seem out of character. And I do think that this apology, although some still think they want to criticize her for making the mistake in the first place, the apology is better received than certain other people in the space. Namely Bill Maher, who, after referring to some of the UAW requests as kooky and saying on September 13th that Real Time with Bill Maher is coming back without writers, just before we started recording this segment, seems to have reversed course. Now, he's not saying generally speaking, that, you know, he supports the workers or whatever that Drew Barrymore said. He said specifically, "My decision to return to work was made when it seemed nothing was happening and there was no insight to the strike. Now that both sides have agreed to go back to the negotiating table, I'm going to delay the return of Real Time for now, and hopefully they can get this done." So that feels a little bit like, well, I'm not making a value judgment here, but it seems like this is going to get wrapped up anyway, so I can wait. And I do think that people were going to be less sympathetic to that, which is not an acknowledgement that he made an anti-labor action. He's also, we've talked about this in another segment, referred to the demands being made as kooky and as being very dismissive of them. And I wonder whether or not this is going to have more broad implications for him and his writing staff if they even choose to return to his show, given the lack of solidarity that he's shown to them. What do you make of this?
I mean, I don't know. I think the reaction that Drew Barrymore received could have been very well anticipated. So it's kind of like it was an error. If she, I mean, she could do it, but she had to know that people were going to yell at her like that. Whereas Bill Maher, I mean, I think he has a slightly different, or the people who like him the most, honestly, he has a lot of appreciation from independent right-wing type people now. So maybe the things he says about labor don't count against him very much. And also, I mean, I don't know if that was true or genuine or an excuse or not, but the decision to actually make sense to me that, like, no, we're going to resume. Then, like, oh, well, if it's about to end, no reason to put out a show or two that are of sub-quality because we don't have writers if it is coming to an end. If there's no end in sight, we're going to get back to it. Again, that's not an answer, obviously, that will appease labor people or labor-supporting people, but makes plenty of sense to me.
And he has to work in this industry. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not just his audience, it's
the staff.
His job. It's his staff, and he's the leader of this ship. And, you know, he's relying on them to write quality jokes for him and be supportive of him. And I will say that in his initial statement, he acknowledged that his show was going to be less good because the writers weren't there, and he clearly values their contributions to the show. But what is this gap between valuing their contribution to his show and thinking they need to be paid equitably? That's the fundamental tension.
I mean, probably creative people like Maher and Drew Barrymore are. I mean, you have to concede that they have some probably legitimate frustration, and not that they're angry at their workers or something, but they don't want to sit around not producing television.
Yeah, and the workers who have been on strike don't want to sit around not being employed and not having paychecks and not being able to pay their rent. It's hardest on them. Nobody wants to be doing this. And, there's some framing issues that are happening here where, the media wants to say, well, they brought this on themselves. They're making these choices. They're the ones that are preventing your favorite show from coming on TV. They're the ones that are stopping the auto plant manufacturer. They're the ones that are not letting the trains go on time to bring your Christmas presents for the railroad strike. That's how they frame these issues. But at the end of the day, when you look at the requests that people are making, the rail workers wanted one vacation day. Is it really the onus on them or on the railroad barons who won't just give them the one vacation day so everybody can go back?
The auto workers want a 40% pay increase and a 4-day work week and a lot of stuff.
The auto workers who made enormous concessions to end these contract disagreements back in the 80s and took pay cuts and are now making worse inflation controlled than they did 30 years ago, want to be brought up to parity, especially since the CEOs are making millions of dollars hand over fist and they have gotten a 40% pay raise. Why should a CEO deserve a 40% pay raise and the employees not deserve a 40% pay raise when you could give everybody an 100% pay raise and still be a profitable company?
I think the movie, the writers are in a somewhat different situation. They're in a more confused. The economics of their industry is more confusing, I think, to them and to everyone involved. And I'm interested to see after a deal is reached. I think there might be there's going to be consequences for this industry in terms of just the streaming economy in general. If some of the things they get, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying there's going to be consequences in terms of transparency for how much shows are perceived to actually make, even from the shareholder perspective.
Maybe, but it's notable that smaller companies like A24 are able to continue to make movies because they simply acquiesced to the demands of the strikers. So there's a question why A24 can do what MGM and some of these enormous, much more lucrative companies insist they're not able to do in terms of paying their writers and actors equitably.
I guess we'll find out. That does it for us for today. Tomorrow on Rising, Briahna and I will be back. Same time, same place. A lot more to get to. A lot of stuff I wanted to get to today that I don't think we had time for, but we will bring it up tomorrow.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while you're on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Bye-bye.
Take care.